a double column. You see, just like that. There are two columns that are connected with some sheets. And the feature is that these sheets are smart. So when you add the height, the number of the sheets will automatically be added. And when you do the opposite will happen. Let's see how we can design this. Now, when we have two objects exactly similar, what should we do? Well, one of them, that's right, we design one of them and then we load it into another family, which is nested family, and then we make it double there. Well, at first, let's design one of them, just. So family, structural column, I design it. Extrusion, or use these parameters. If it's repeated for you, you can also skip it. If you want to watch it, well, watch it. Two reference planes. I like them. And I also like this one. Dimensions, measuring. I change the scale. You're professional now, so I do it a bit faster. Don't explain it too much. You don't need it. T1. Length and width are automatically taken care of. Equal. And T2. Alright, finish. Let's test it. T1 would have to be, for example, 20, and T2 the same. Depth, for example, 30, and width 20. But height, just like before. Now, this is the height, you see. If you remember the example I told you about the table, now the height has to become parametric, but I don't do it so far so that you find out the importance of it. So I designed a column, I'd save it as, for example, column double, for example. Now, you bring another column into the family. You load that into this. We don't need to make it parametric. I delete this too. I don't need them. But remember that when you are in a family and you want to load another family, you can easily go to create and select component. So any family can, any family is somehow a component for another family. I click and I select that double column I had. I load it. I select it and load it. Leave it here. Now this is an object, and you can see the parameters of it in edit type. T1, T2, length and width. I copy it. Now tell me, what should be parametric? That's right, the distance between them. So RP, I draw two RPs. DI, the distance between them. Let me make it smaller. So now again, distance between. This is what I call it. All right. These were the representatives. Now align and lock these two together. And these two should be in the middle exactly. So locked with this reference plane too. Let's check it. Distance between, for example, would be 60 or 30. Great. Now, we could also make this distance parametric, but usually it should be center line to center line. Now, while I was teaching column, I said that for working with the levels, you need to drag it and stick it to that RP. Now, how are you going to do that? We can't. So what we got to do is to make the height of this in the main file parametric, so that here we can connect it to this. So we go to edit family of this column. In elevation, I draw an RP and I stick this to this reference plane and I lock it. And of course, this distance, which is the height of this column, should also become parametric. HCLMN, H column 2. Now I load it into family and overwrite. Now, in the edit type of this, it has a height, and this height should always equal this height. Right? It's not like that table, because the table had a height and we needed to give another height to it. Now we just have one height. So all we've got to do is to measure this distance. Give it a height, H for example, just H. Just like you see, it's made of reporting. When it goes into the project, it changes automatically based on the height we give to the levels. Now select this, go to the edit type, and H equals a parameter called H. This H column should equal this parameter called H. Do you understand that? I think it's understood. If you hadn't given the parameters, we wouldn't have been able to connect it to that. We don't have the arrow anymore. Let me save it. Now let's continue and add the sheets. We need to go to the plan first. Use extrusion. Remember that anytime you see an object is being repeated, you can use nested family. But if the number of the parameters that come with it is not enough, you can also design it right here in this file. For example, the sheets, I can use nested family, but because it's got length and width, I can design it right here. So from this part to this part, lock and finish. So far, you see what happens? Now, this distance is parametric, right? These two reference planes, it is locked to these two reference planes. The thickness, I also wanted it to be fixed. I don't want it to change. So let's connect these two. And it's not bad to draw a reference plane here for this, for the lower part of them. Lock. I could have not drawn it, you know, but I've sometimes say that if you want to measure the subjects, connect a RP to them. Now, this dimension is not parametric, it's just locked. So, for example, if the size of this changes, for example, if it becomes 50, this will change, will be moved and all that. Now let's check it out in the elevation. In the elevation, for example, the sheet we placed here, we want it to, for example, be 20 centimeters, the height, for example. And I want it to repeat with a specific distance. For example, each 20 centimeters, it should be repeated. Or let's say 50. Every 50 centimeters, it should be repeated. Now, when you want something to be repeated, what should you do? That's right, you need to array. So select it and select array. And obviously use second, right? Because we were about to give the distance of each sheet to the next sheet, which is 50. Now, just like you said, it does not go up, and I learned that we need to inactivate a constraint. But when you do that, it still does not go up. You see, when you actually, you need to select this sheet and then click this small lock here. So it's a small point. This lock here means that this sheet sticks to these two reference planes and it does not separate. When you click it, it still doesn't change, but the problem is solved. So click array, second, click somewhere, doesn't matter. The distance was about to be 5. How many? The distance as a default is 4, so we need to have 8 sheets. Now everything is alright, it's perfectly well, but the point is that if we change this height too, will it change? No. So we want to make this number smart. We wanted it to be updated automatically. Now, you can make the number of array parametric. It's very basic and simple. All you've got to do is select one of the members, one of the sheets. You see a number. When you zoom in, there is a line. It has a line. As long as you don't make it wireframe, you cannot see it perfectly well. Select one of the sheets. There's a number. When you zoom in, there's a line. You see? Select this line. When you select this line, there is an option called label, which you have already seen for making parametric. When you open it, you select add parameters. Now we need to call it, for example, number. Now, basically, it should be instance because one of the, for example, columns is small, short, one of them is tall. All of them can't change together at once. One of the columns, for example, has gone to the second floor. One of them has gone to the first floor, right? So it should be instance, and okay. Now, number has now become parametric. It means that you can, for example, change the height to, for example, 11. Let's change the number to 11, for example. But we weren't about to change the number ourselves, right? What we wanted to be done was for the number to change automatically. Now, what should we do? At first, go to this part. Pay attention to this number. This number always depends on the height. Therefore, what we can do is say number equals h divided by what? What was the distance? 50, which is 500 millimeters. All right. H divided by 500. Now, if h increases, obviously the number will increase too. Let's try it. For example, let's change height to 1200. You see that? The sheets will automatically become more. If we decrease it, the number of the sheets will as well be less. So in this example, you learned that how we can make the number parametric, but there is a point. Just like you see, when you array an object, it does not actually follow the rules that we locked these. So you say, let's try it. I select it, edit, and I'll select this one and I connect it to this part, lock. You see, it's not accepted. It says it goes out of the group, so we can't do it. What should we do? When you can't lock these to this part, what you have to do is to give it a dimension, give it a parameter. Now, can you tell me what the width of this sheet equals? That's right, it equals distance between. So instead of lock this to reference planes, we can say this is the width, for example. So I draw a reference plane for it, independent reference planes, and for example, equal, remember? Let me lock these two. They're for themselves. Now, between these two reference planes, there should be a dimension which shows the distance between two without locking them to those reference planes. I chose the parameters for itself and then I'll finish it. Well, now let's try it. Elevation. At first, I'll change the height. The distance between, I'll change it. Distance between would have to be, for example, 1,000. And this one. This was the ultimate point. Well, to be able to, let's say, clean this mess, we need to go to the elevation, and all we've got to do is to fix the first and the last one. The first one needs to be aligned with this and locked, and the last one needs to be aligned with this and locked. Let's see it in 3D. Again, I'll test it. 500. Okay. 2000, it's okay. Well, the bigger numbers help us understand more clear. 30, absolutely correct. Let's check the height, for example, 3 meters. It's okay. You know, a big number too for the height. Don't pay attention to the error. Now I load it into the project and tell you the ultimate point of it. So it should be height. I'll leave one here. There are some points here that are good to know. Now, what parameters of these do we have access to? Well, we can easily change the height. So we can also change the distance between in edit time. What do we miss here? What parameters do we miss? There's something we need to be able to change, but it doesn't seem here that we can. That's right, width and length of each of the columns and the length. Why can't we do that? Well, the reason is that let's go to the family. When you go to family types, you just can see the parameters that are related to this family, right? And only these parameters are imported in project. You saw that we could just change distance between when we loaded it into project, but the length and width of each column is not here. So where is it? We need to select each of them, go to the type, and then here we can see them. We can see the T's here. Now we need to do something that this family that has come from somewhere else, its parameters become, let's say, to be imported here. Let me draw you a 2D shape. See, this is a space of a family. Let me draw you a diagram. This is a space of a family. This family has several parameters. All right. It has several parameters. And these are the same parameters, right? These are the same parameters that are loaded in where? That's right, into project. Let me draw it for you here. You've been working with family so professionally, so you need to learn this too. So we've got a family. Everything we've got here, the parameters are loaded into the project, these. Now, when you're working with nested family, I mean, this family has come from somewhere else. Inside this family, what do we have? We've got another family here, right? Another family. Do you understand that? We've got a family here and here too. Now, again, these have some parameters inside them, like for example, length, width, T2, T1. Now, you might have brought two families like this. These are not loaded into the project as long as they come here first and then they can be loaded. This is what I'm going to teach you, that how we can load the parameters of a family that have come from somewhere else and add them to this list so that they can be loaded into the project. And it's so simple. As long as the parameters of this family is not added here or not added here, it's not loaded. It's so simple to fix it. Select this first, go to edit type. If you select this depth here, it says that this parameter wants to go in which of these, wants to be connected to which of these. I say none, right? Because actually it's important, I'm going to say it again. There are some parameters here. When I select this and then go to edit type, and I click this, it says which of these does it want to be connected to go into the project, and I say none, it's not related to this. And I say, so I want a new parameter. Actually, this is a parameter that is being added to this part. So I click new, write the same name, it's okay, depth, right? I created one and I connected it to that. Let me, okay. Here it's created and connected to. Actually, this happened. You see, one of these was connected to something new here that was created. Right? It was connected to one of these. Let's do the others. Select it. Go to the type. Click this. Now it says which of these? I say none of them. So I want a new parameter. Write the same name. You don't need to change the name. And these the same. Now, by doing this, you are capable of changing these parameters in the project itself so that you don't have to go into the family all the time, back and forth and change them. T1, T2, width and depth. All of these are moved here, and therefore they are seen in the project too. Load into project. Override. When I select it and then edit the edit type, enter the edit type, we can see all of the dimensions. Let's test it now. Just like that, you can change them. Anytime you come up with any questions, just bring them up, right? I try to be in touch for these more complicated stuff. Well, definitely in families, you know that making the materials parametrics is important. When you select it, here you can't choose a material for it because you need to go to the family, go to its own family and connect it to, for example, something like structural family or the material itself. When you load it, override, and select it, the material comes with it, right? Here again, we send the material to the project. If we do that, now we can even change the material in the project. What I tried was to mention the most developed points in designing and creating families. And it's not created in this family, so that you can easily select edit. It's built in another family, but here we have access to the material too. Now, what I mentioned may have been a bit difficult to you, but it can help you understand the parametric and everything about it fully. Try to watch these videos for several times